Hey guys, today we're back in the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392. We did a video a few weeks ago giving you guys some first impressions on this thing. Basically what you need to know is it's awesome, it's super fast, it's incredibly fun to drive. I've spent some more time in it this week. We have a 6.4 liter, 470 horsepower Hemi V8, 392 cubic inches, about a $76,000 MSRP. Pretty pricey. You got to pay to play with this. This one as spec is about 80 grand. I wanted to give you guys some further thoughts on what it's been like to live with and drive this thing this week. I've put quite a few miles on it, and I gotta say, I really enjoyed my time in this Jeep. This is probably my favorite Jeep that I've ever driven. I like it way more than the 4xe. Its road manners are just so much more refined. We have a stiffer chassis, active dual mode exhaust, and 8-speed automatic transmission, full-time four-wheel drive, locking front and rear differentials, and off-road mode, sway bar disconnect, larger rear brakes. Jeep's done a little bit of work to handle the 470 horsepower in this Wrangler 392, but it still is way too fast for the amount of grip and traction and chassis control that this thing has. It's kind of hilarious. Let's get into this thing, show you around it. We'll give you a quick walk around and then we'll take it for a drive. We've got a kind of snowy, wintry mix of a day here in southeast Michigan. Should make for some fun back road driving. We'll see if we can put our power down as well as possible in this Wrangler 392. So, first things first, we've got a pretty nicely appointed cabin in here. Heated steering wheel, heated seats, traction control buttons, physical controls for just about everything you need. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Plugging this in is pretty easy. You've got your media ports right there. Nice place to put your phone in the middle here near the cup holders. You've got a USB-C port, USB Type-A. Everything connects very quickly. A little bit more storage space in here with a USB port and a little bit of extra storage space up top. You've got your tools here to take off your doors. We have paddle shifters behind the wheel for this 8-speed automatic. Pretty decent sound system in this. This is one of the only hardtop Jeeps that I've driven, and I'm actually quite impressed with how quiet it is on the highway. Still not quite sure why Jeep is doing this white surfacing on their hardtops. I feel like I would like that to be color matched or dark. It looks a little bit cheap and chintzy, but I don't know, maybe it makes the cabin feel a little bit more open and airy. We've got some sound deadening pieces right here that help. And actually on the highway, this is a pretty reasonable car to drive. It's not terribly loud, and the suspension's a little bit tighter, a little bit stiffer, and there's not as much tram lining, even with these 315 millimeter wide tires. All right, let's walk around this thing a little bit, show you what it's like. This exhaust is absolutely fantastic. It sounds so good. Massive 35-inch BFG KO2s, 315/70 R17s. Got a steel bumper up front, a couple recovery hooks, all gold. Love the graphics on this. This Rubicon badge with the gold accents around the 392 looks really sharp. It's funny because this time last year we had a bright red G-Wagon, G63 AMG, same week, right around New Year's, and here we are with the American equivalent. This is kind of the American G-Wagon, I think. This Wrangler 392 has a 3.5-inch lift over a standard Wrangler to accommodate those 35-inch tires. Get a ton of ground clearance. Inside, it's pretty much the same story. There's nothing too different on the inside. You're mostly paying for the powertrain. Plenty of legroom, plenty of space in the back of this Jeep. It is a pretty nice place to be. Lots of washable interior materials, floor mats, everything's rubberized. Not as easy to get in and out of, that's for sure, as the normal Jeep, but that's how it is with anything lifted and high performance off-road. Pretty good amount of cargo space back here too. I love how this is just adjustable so that you can fit whatever size tire you want in the back. Let's pop the hood, show you underneath. This is rated for 13 miles to the gallon in the city and 17 miles to the gallon on the highway, which seems pretty spot on. This week I've averaged about 14 to 15 combined. There is that beautiful Hemi V8 with some more gold accents on the sides. Induction scoops right here. That is a functional ram air intake, which is pretty cool. Watch your fingers with this belt. People have been throwing V8s into Wranglers for quite a while. AEV did some conversions back in the day. Cost about $30,000 to do. And from the factory with a warranty, this Wrangler 392 adds up to be about the same price. On first impressions though, this thing is just a wild amount of fun. Let's take it for a drive and we'll show you what it's like on the road. Reverse camera, covered in snow. So left to its own devices in auto mode, this 8-speed automatic does a pretty good job giving you immediate downshifts. It's pretty intelligent with its shift logic. You put it into manual mode and the paddles are a little bit slow, a little bit sluggish, especially compared to a lot of the other vehicles with this 6.4 liter V8 with this 392 engine. Of course, you have to imagine this is a completely different transmission than any of those vehicles have, so I guess some of that can be forgiven. But the downshifts are just a little bit more sluggish. And there's just so much power here. There is not a rear-wheel drive mode in this Wrangler 392, so you're always in 4-wheel drive auto, or part-time 4 high, or 4 low. Probably a good thing. I'm sure a lot of people would get into some pretty serious trouble with 470 horsepower going through only 2 of those wheels. One of my favorite things about Jeeps are their incredibly tight turning radiuses. And this Wrangler 392 also delivers on that front. Let's turn off traction control and do a little bit of a launch. It knows when you're doing a launch controlled start because it improves the shifts. So brake pedal to the floor. And there's 60 miles an hour. There's so much torque, the brakes can't even hold this to a complete stop. You just kind of brake boost it and launch and you're off. There is a pretty good amount of power and bite from these brakes. There's a lot of nosedive. It still handles like a Jeep. I think the best thing about this 392 is that you can have this sound, take the doors off, take the roof off, take off the side panels, and get an open top experience with this exhaust note. Off throttle, there is quite a bit of deceleration if you manually downshift. That's kind of cool. Basically, I love everything about this Jeep except for the price. It's kind of a shame that you can't get into one of these for less than $80,000, $90,000 right now, because it is just such a fun, amazingly capable package. I've had a smile on my face all week with this thing. This exhaust hasn't gotten old. If you want to shut it up, you can. But just listen to it. Ah. Even these KO2s do pretty well on the wet. Let's talk about the chassis here a little bit. There's some major improvements in feel that Jeep has done with this Wrangler 392. This is not the wallowy, sketchy Jeep Wrangler that I'm used to around corners. It actually handles okay. This is a vehicle that I would gladly daily drive, whereas I'm not sure I would say that about a lot of other Wrangler models. The suspension and the chassis stiffening that they've done here has really made a nice improvement to the on-road dynamics. And of course, this is pretty much all the off-road capability you would need. So, let's put us back into automatic mode. We'll turn off the performance exhaust, and we'll give you guys an idea of what this sounds like when you want to calm things down a little bit and not disturb the peace. It's pretty quiet. It's kind of impressive how much of a range that valve exhaust has. Pretty much all you're hearing at this point is wind and road noise. And then if you do want to get into it, the exhaust will open right back up for you. We have Jeep's very familiar cruise control system. The left side is adaptive cruise control. The right side is old-fashioned normal cruise control, which is kind of cool to have those two so easily accessible. Lots of different menus and displays. They all respond and show up pretty quickly, which is nice. Tire pressures, all sorts of temperature displays, coolant, oil temp, trans temp, all that good stuff. Drivetrain off-road, pitch and roll displays, automatic cruise control, fuel economy. You don't want to look at that. I've averaged about 13 miles to the gallon in the last 150 miles. Nothing to brag about. Love the ergonomics in this Jeep. Like all Wranglers, it's pretty good mix of tech with this infotainment, with Uconnect, and physical controls, physical buttons. The window switches are a bit funky, but once you get the hang of kind of rolling them all up at once, you kind of get the finger positioning down. God, I love this exhaust. No drone on the highway, even with it on. You just get a little bit of a subtle rumble in the background. 75 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour, no drone. This is electronically limited to 112 miles per hour because of the tires. So you don't really want to drive on these KO2s for their structural integrity beyond that speed, which makes sense. Pretty comfortable at 70. No weird wind noise or reverberations throughout the cabin. It's a little bit loud, but honestly, I could easily drive a bunch of miles, a bunch of hours in this thing and be completely comfortable. I like these seats. I like the driving position. I have great visibility. Adaptive cruise control works really well. It starts accelerating as soon as you put your turn signal if you're going to pass a slower vehicle. Let's try that right here. You can easily change your following distance to a number of different settings. It seems to be pretty responsive. There's no steering assist or lane keep system really. I have noticed that the blind spot monitoring is a little bit conservative this week. So So I did turn off the beep, but I left the lights on. So turn signal on, not pressing anything, and we're accelerating around the slower traffic very quickly. For winter driving, my heated steering wheel temperature is just about perfect. A little bit on the warmer side, but doesn't burn your hands off. Heated seats, same story. There's some settings in here where you can set those, heated steering wheel and heated seats to turn on automatically whenever you're in a cold day, which is kind of nice. We've got pretty good stability at highway speeds, and I've got to say this is the most refined on-road driving experience in any Wrangler that I've driven, except for maybe the Gladiator, which has a completely different suspension setup. This is really impressive. When I first drove this Wrangler 392, I thought they hadn't really made too many improvements on it, but after spending some more time behind the wheel, and especially after driving the 4xe recently, this is a really nice Jeep to drive on road. I've always been a little bit perplexed with how people deal with the recirculating ball steering and the really wallowy on-road dynamics of Jeeps on a daily basis. But this kind of takes things to another level. And it should, because it's got to put all this power down and make it safe and make it livable. Jeep's done a great job tuning this chassis, and absolutely love this thing. It is so much fun. It would be cool to have a rear-wheel drive mode where you can slide it around a little bit, but honestly, that's probably not the safest or smartest of options. Let's see if we can chase down some dirt roads up here. We'll take this around a couple more corners, let you listen to the exhaust, throw it back into manual mode. Upshift right about 500 to 1,000 RPM before red line, you will run into the limiter, and it'll take a little bit longer for that shift to happen. If I had two complaints, I'd like a little bit more responsiveness out of the gearbox, and I'd like this to be about $20,000 less expensive. But you got to think, a lot of people are probably putting $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 into their Jeeps anyway. And if you can get one with a big lift, massive 35-inch tires, and a V8, that's kind of all you want, all you need. Pretty comfortable off-road on washboarding. We're going to be taking this, I hope, to an off-road park later this week and get some time behind the wheel. We've already done an off-road test on this Wrangler before, and hopefully this week's off-road excursion will just kind of build on that experience. Should we do another launch on this dirt road? Testing the brakes. Spinning all four wheels. Oh, what a monster. These 315 section tires are struggling a little bit and following the road a little bit in some snow, but they are pretty wide, and it is hard for wider tires to cut through snow. Don't get me wrong, there is still some inherent Jeep instability here. It's not perfect, but it is a big improvement over your standard Rubicon. Still a handful. On these 35-inch tires, potholes, big bumps, it just shrugs everything off. It's pretty awesome off-road. The capability, the comfort, the usability of this Wrangler 392 is not to be ignored. It even gets decent fuel economy. I think just about every lifted Jeep on the market gets around 15 miles to the gallon, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on how fast you're going. And this still gets about 15, 14 miles to the gallon. Granted, if you're in it a lot, you're going to average a little bit closer to 13 mpg, but it's not the fuel economy penalty that I was expecting. And if you're doing a lot of highway driving, I don't know, it's not as bad as I thought it would be, which is kind of a pleasant surprise. You get lots of really cool random pops from the exhaust. You can kind of play with it a little bit with the throttle. Jeep's done a fantastic job tuning this exhaust. This has got to be one of the best sounding iterations of this 392. Hold the left paddle for downshifts, it'll take you to the lowest gear. That's kind of cool. What a thing. All right. Well, I think that's going to be a wrap on our Wrangler 392 review. You guys get the idea. It just gets better and better the more time I've spent with this thing. I really have enjoyed driving this week. It is an absolute monster on the street, and hopefully, as we can see later this week, it's going to be an amazing vehicle off-road too. So, tons of fun. Big smile factor. You know, no one really does fun vehicles. I don't think anyone has as fun of a vehicle lineup as FCA has the last decade, as Stellantis has right now. This is really something to have all of these great V8 fun machines at our disposal. It's not going to last that much longer. You know, yeah, this is not a cheap vehicle, but get it while you can. Enjoy it. I think something like this is probably going to hold its value pretty well. It's going to be a really, I don't know, I think exciting and fun vehicle to own, and not a lot of things I don't like about this. It's definitely the best Jeep that I've ever driven, and gosh, if it were just a little bit less expensive, I'd probably go out and buy one, because I've absolutely loved my time in it this week. All right, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.